Palmtree is hiring now for consulting roles across its U.S. offices. You can apply at palmtreellc.com or through the link in the show notes. But why should you care? Palmtree is a premier M&A consulting and advisory firm that sits at the intersection of strategy, finance, and analytics. The firm looks like a traditional consulting firm from the outside, but it's much more than that, functioning as a one-stop shop to support private equity clients. Palmtree focuses exclusively on mergers and acquisitions and the private equity investment lifecycle, transactions, transitions, and transformations of businesses. Sound exciting? To learn about open roles and to apply, click the link in the show notes or go to palmtreellc.com.
Welcome back to Strategy Simplified. We're starting a series of discussions on the fit interview. In these short episodes, you'll be hearing the highlights of Management Consulted's top teaching notes on consulting behavioral interview prep. Today's topic is on the question of walk me through your resume. I hope you enjoy the discussion. Walk me through your resume. This is probably the most likely question that you're going to get in a consulting behavioral interview, and it's also very important. Any version of this question, walk me through your resume, tell me a little bit about yourself. Why don't we start, before we kick off, why don't you give me a brief introduction? This question establishes your story to the interviewer. It establishes a first impression, and it's the first chance that they get to see, likely in this conversation, on your broad communication skills. Not only the way that you're able to be structured in your conversation, but your confidence, poise, gravitas, executive presence, etc. So what do we do? How do we handle this question? We need to be prepared. This is a direct question that we can expect in the interview process. We need to start from the basis of our resume and our story and come up with a 2-minute answer that we can reliably deliver from interview to interview, from person to person. The majority of this answer doesn't need to change from person to person. This is an answer that you can dish out in settings where you're just meeting people, in settings where you're going from interview conversation to interview conversation. This 2-minute version of your story is a critical piece to have in your toolkit, a necessary part of your arsenal. How are we going to do this? We're going to walk through this answer by starting with our personal roots and then walking them through the decisions that we made on education, and then chronologically hitting some highlights about our background and our career. Going through 2 to 4 experiences. That could be work experiences, leadership experiences. In each of those experiences, you're talking about what happened and briefly, perhaps why you made that transition from the one thing to the next, to be able to tie a thread in between your different points in your background and career. But we can't get into a lot of detail in a 2-minute answer. This isn't going to be a perfect representation of everything on your resume. That's why you have a 1-page resume. We want to tell this story in 2 minutes in a way that makes sense, that ties together, that is not rushed, and is as comprehensive and as complete as possible. Now, once you get past your mid-20s, you're probably going to have to start filtering significantly as you tell this story. This is going to be something that really requires you to choose carefully and choose wisely. Now, let's just talk briefly about each of these individual elements that make up the 2 minutes. First, I'm going to start my story with my personal roots, something that's positive, something that could be based on my culture, but not necessarily my country, or kind of trying to stereotype or categorize me based on the country that I came from, the region I came from. We're grabbing the interviewer's attention by starting to tell them a story, by pulling their eyes off the page. They could ask a question that is, hey, why don't you walk me through your resume? And they could be looking at your resume and perhaps even expecting you to go into a rather detailed, long answer. Instead, we want to pull their attention away to you and the engaging story that you're telling as you weave together the different key pieces of how you got here today. Something likely from your personal roots, from your background, from your experiences growing up led you to get the education that you got. So we could quickly go through where you went to school and what you studied and perhaps even why you chose to do that. Within this piece of education, if this is a significant part of your background, or if you are younger and you don't have that many things to speak to, we might expand here slightly, speaking to some of the things that you did or accomplished during your education. Likely you're not speaking to awards, but you want to speak to some of the qualities and capabilities that you've gained through work or key project assignment experience during your education. So analytics, quantitative work, project work in a team, client services, experiential learning opportunities, etc. Then this begins kind of tying that thread, post-secondary education into the different key pieces of your work experience that have led you to where you're at today. It makes sense for most of us to go through the story in chronological order. So speaking to and starting from that base of where you got your undergrad degree, allowing that to help you flow into, and that enabled me. Then I decided to go get my first job in blank. We're really only speaking a max of 2 sentences each about each of your work experiences post-secondary education. You could speak a little bit about why you took the role and what you did in the role. But again, we're not getting into specifics. When you start practicing this 2-minute story, you'll see not much. We can speak to many different parts of our background, but we're not getting into a lot of depth. We should keep it positive. And you should hit positive highlights of these different work experiences as you go through and speak to significant pieces of your background. As I mentioned before, if you have several different entries on your resume, if you have several different places that you've worked or several different degrees that you've gotten, you might decide to speed through some of them or try to collapse and combine a couple of small opportunities. We're not necessarily paying close attention to speak to everything exactly that we've done at the same level of depth and detail. We're trying to give the interviewer a broad understanding and tie a thread between the different experiences in our background and past, and ultimately to help them understand why we're going for this job, this position that we're going for today.
We'll be right back after this quick break.
Students, did you know that you can get complimentary access to MC's online consulting prep curriculum? Yep, that's right. You can get complimentary access to our cases, courses, drills, industry primers, and more if your school subscribes to the Management Consulted platform. If your school is not currently a subscriber, reach out to Career Services today and ask them to get in touch. Or, even better, connect Career Services with us today. You can write team@managementconsulted.com.
Of course, as we think about this chronological history and background, we want to include any significant leadership roles that you've had. That would be something that's non-paid or non-graded experience. As we tell this chronological story, ultimately we get to today's moment, this point in time in which you're looking to move to a new organization or pivot your career. Most of you on this podcast, you're looking to get into consulting. So we want to end this story with a forward-looking view of what you're looking for next. But take care here. What's next should be general. think you want to work on, you're looking for team-based work that's challenging and thought-provoking. You're looking for an opportunity to make global impact. You're looking for an opportunity to work with social enterprises wherever possible. Now, there's a couple of key things going on here. It is too aggressive of a statement to end your 2 sentences by saying, and that's why I want to be, a consultant at Accenture. That's not the direction that we want to go to be able to end off these stories. Instead, we want to speak to general qualities and aspects of the work that you anticipate to be true about the job that you're applying for, but it's not necessarily only true about this job. You can imagine going for other jobs that will meet that bar as well. And then on the other side of things, that it somehow we can tie a thread. It feels connected. It feels like the story builds up to this moment in time where I can see and understand, based on your background and history, why you're looking to do that next. Here's where then the art comes in as you think about really truly crafting this story from start to finish. Not that we are curating, speaking to certain examples or not. We want to hit all the key elements of our background and past, but the way in which you tie the story together, the transitions between your different experiences about, why you left or why you decided to move to a certain thing and what you got out of that time. You're going to have to make strategic choices about what to say for each experience. And hopefully that story overall ties together and helps make sense with this aspect of what's next. When we're talking about consulting behavioral interviews, this is the only question where you need a 2-minute prepared answer. Every other single answer that we're preparing for this behavioral cultural fit interview is going to be a 1-minute answer. So this is our chance to really put a little bit of extra thought and effort into delivering a clear, compelling story that makes sense to the interviewer, that matches to our resume, but it is at a higher level, that ties a thread between our experiences, that tells a story, and that helps the interviewer understand in a more clear way why you're deciding to move forward into consulting, why you might be looking to join their firm. Thanks for joining us today. Fit interview practice is important and should not be completely overshadowed by your case practice. And if you'd like informed feedback and instruction on how to improve, you could work with one of our coaches here at MC. They can layer fit questions into case prep or help you work through dedicated 30 or 60-minute sessions just on fit interview prep. Check out the link in the show notes to learn more, and we'll see you next time.